everyone. Welcome to the show. I wanted to talk about today things that I wished I knew about marriage in the beginning. So, 5 things that I wish I knew then that I know now after being married 29 years. So, I guess the first thing that you really think about with marriage is that it's supposed to be ideal and, it's going to be perfect. You're never going to fight. You're going to be best friends all the time. And everything's just going to be easy and it's going to be romantic. And basically we build this fantasy. And I'm going to blame the Hallmark Channel and Harlequin romance novels because they paint a completely unrealistic idea of what marriage is, what romance is like, and it creates us to get these false expectations. And I guess you could also blame this first one that we're going to talk about on alternate media, on porn. So the first thing that I'd like to start out with before we get into that is marriage is something that's hard. And if you don't want to make sacrifices and you don't want to put the work in and you don't want to go through tough times and swallow your pride, then it's something you need to wait to do if you're not ready to do that, because marriage is not easy. It is very, 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 very tough. And it takes a lot of effort on both sides to get through everything that's thrown at you. So first and foremost, make sure you're ready to get married before you get married. And don't go into it thinking that it is just going to be roses and rainbows and unicorns the whole time, because it's really not. In my experience, in the first 4 years, roughly, you will, at some point in that time frame, the mask is going to come off. I'm sorry, guys, your girlfriends do fart, and although they hide it very well, it's going to come out. Where they squeeze the toothpaste, or little things that are, what do I want to say? Little things that are very anal about that person, things that they are just very, very anal retentive about and doing, it's going to come out. If you have any kind of way of doing things or way of thinking in the first 4 years, your guys are going to cross on those at some point. But the first thing I want to bring up, and it's because it's the first thing that brings us to a relationship, is sex. Sex is what gets us moving towards a person, gets us interested, an attraction of sorts, and it varies. An interesting thing that I found, one, is what the standards of attraction are throughout the world. I really found this interesting. But in America, we tend to have a certain way, and believe it or not, in like the early 1900s, when it came to attractions for men, then it was like a woman that was, not super skinny, had wider hips, had smooth hands, and didn't to appear to do a lot of manual labor, was attractive to a man. And the reason why I think is, one, the wide hips, obviously having kids, smooth hands, well-fed, usually meant a symbol of wealth. So, that was an attractive standard. Then you get more into where, like the 80s, maybe 70s, 80s, 90s, the thin, tan, sports model, bikini model kind of look became attractive. And now I'm honestly really out of touch with this, but it seems to be a mixed bag. And the reason why I'm focusing on looks right now and women is because men are visual creatures and they tend to look at aesthetics, and that's how they become attracted to a woman. And that's really not that different from nature. Most of it's pheromone scents and stuff in the wild, but, things like apes and other mammals, they would have ways that would become attractive to men to let them know, or to the boy to let them know they're ready to mate. But nowadays, like I said, it's kind of a mixed bag. I see a little bit of everything. Now, women, on the other hand, I'm not a woman, so I have a real hard time with this. But from what I do know, from what I've learned from my wife, mainly because she married me, I'm not this typical guy. And when my wife met me, I was overweight, like really overweight when she met me. I've since gotten my health mostly under control, but I was a bigger guy. But the things that were attractive to her were different. Like, I thought she was beautiful, and that was the main thing that got me attracted to her. So, hey, yes, guys are shallow when it comes to this. But she was attracted to me more by how I presented myself. I was in a band, and she liked the way I played music, the music that I listened to. She liked more of who I was as a person, which I find that women don't necessarily and complete and fully judge a guy on his looks. So that's a part of this. Guys, women don't always care about how good you look. A lot of times they care more about who you are as a person and care more about how you treat them. And it's changing. Before, you kind of had to be a little bit of a jerk. I don't know why, but this theory of what you can't have or that you can fix him was bigger in that time than it is now, I believe. To let you know, women look at more of who you are, how you carry yourself, and most of all, your confidence, and if you can make them laugh. This is true. It was true then, but I think it's a little more true now. And also, the other thing about that is sex is not going to be what you see in a porn. You shouldn't really be watching it anyway, but guys get introduced to porn very early anymore. You can't really hardly keep it away. You just have to have discernment. It's in one shape or another. Women, what you see in the movies or in books that you might read, it's not like that. It is romantic and it's kind of hot in the beginning, obviously. But, one of the things is guys, the girl is not a bendy doll, for one. And two, they are not wired to just be this submissive object of want. They have feelings too, and they have things they like too. So in sex, I would say the most important thing is communication. What you like, what you don't like, what grosses you out, what doesn't gross you out. Be communicative and don't be ashamed to be communicative. This was a struggle for me because I get kind of bashful. And, and so I wouldn't say what I liked. And then I would kind of I was just kind of like expect for, my wife just to figure it out. And that's not fair. And that wasn't fair of me. And, I get kind of irritated about it. But as we grew together over the last 29 years, we've learned how to communicate more about it. Guys, I have some bad news. All the jokes, this also goes with time, all the jokes about how sex gets less as you get married, the longer you're married, is true. It's just true. The reason why we make jokes about it is because we all can relate to it, and it's funny because we all have experienced it after a period of time. It's not that the physical piece of the sex goes down. It's just stuff starts to get in the way. Kids, pets, also, we just learn things and things happen. It's not always hot and passionate all the time. You get into disagreements. You are starting to learn about each other. And also you have jobs, you get tired. And then also libido is a factor. I have an issue with something that is said is that women get more horny and more about their wanting sex as they get older. That is absolutely inconclusive. I may say that is for some women, but the thing is that what I have observed is that is mostly women who are single, and the idea of it not being readily available kind of helps. But the reality of it is the longer you've been married, sex gets less. And there's also other things that happen, but women's libidos go down. Men's don't necessarily, but if there is not enough affection or touch or things that initiate, men are physical. They just are. And so if there's not that touch factor, that validation factor that a woman thinks to give, sex will drop. Men will grow disinterested because they're not getting some of the emotional stuff they need, the oxytocin that they need from touch. Of course, sex is a dopamine thing. It's a reward. Your body drops dopamine whenever you have an orgasm. But the reality of it is, if you don't pair that up with oxytocin, then there's not that bond, and that bond grows weak if you don't do things like cuddle and have some physical, non-sexual validation of touch. If you don't keep that up, then they're going to flurry. Also, when a woman goes through menopause and changes start to happen, a lot of times their libido goes down because they're not getting the amounts of estrogen that they need to keep that going. So that's another factor. This will vary from person to person, but it can be a factor that needs to be considered. And guys, you go through menopause, whether you like it or not. Your hormones change, and it all happens from 40 to 50 and starts to, get more or less after 50. It's going to go down. Hormones just start dropping. Testosterone and estrogen levels drop. It's a natural thing. So you can try to maintain those. But a lot of times there's some effects to that they don't necessarily tell you. In any kind of hormone replacement therapy, there can be side effects. You just need to talk to your doctor about it. You need to go over that because that's a big deal. So, and I'm spending a lot of time on this because it's so important, because these are the things that keep a relationship going. Sex, touch, intimacy is very important. And also, communication is kind of a part of this as well. And if these all drop out, you'll see that your sex life is going to dwindle. and it takes work. That's the other side of the coin is, guys, you got to put the work in. If you don't put the work in, keep it up, think that she's just going to figure it out or she's always going to be ready. That's not the truth. Women, if you expect guys just to throw you up against the wall or throw you on a bed and it's going to be like some kind of Harlequin romance novel, it's not. Because guys are not psychic either. In fact, guys are pretty clueless. So that is a big part of a relationship, is maintaining that intimacy. The next thing that I want to talk about is money, because that is another disruptor. So money causes problems in relationships. I suggest that with money, you figure out who is going to manage the money. And the reason why is if there's too many cooks in the kitchen, there's a problem. And men and women tend to do money differently. And it varies. And the reason why is you generally in a relationship will have a spender and you'll have a saver. And the spender loves their spending money. They love to do stuff. And the saver is always looking at the long term. So I believe, in my opinion, you should figure out who the saver is and have the saver do the money and then compromise about spending. Because the saver often is a saver and they do not know how to loosen the reins. And generally the saver is the one who is more of the person that worries in a relationship. Generally you have a happy-go-lucky person, and then you have a person that's more of a worrier, and they offset each other. This is called the rock and the balloon. So we have one person that's living in the clouds and one person that's living on earth. So you want to have that person, they need to even each other out, and they need to be open to each other's ideas. This will help the relationship find a balance. So when it comes to money, the saver really needs to be the one getting in and doing the books and making sure that the finances are in order, the bills are getting paid, because there is peace in that whenever you don't have to worry about the bills. That's the main thing. Eating out, yeah, that's fun, but it doesn't cause you worry when you can't do it like a bill collector trying to get the bills. So figure your money out. Figure the money out, communicate about it, be open, and be in line with each other. The next thing that I think that is important to get straight is religion. Now, this has been a hard one for my wife and I because she was raised Catholic and I was raised Protestant. The problem is that she doesn't agree with, even though she was raised Catholic, she doesn't necessarily agree with the Catholic points of view, and she agrees more with Protestant points of view. But the linchpin there is the priest aspect. Since she grew up with priests, it's hard for her to see a guy dressed in normal clothes. She's expecting the priestly garb and the visuals of it, and that doesn't happen in a Protestant church. There are some variations that you might find it, but for the most, in a Protestant church, you don't have a priest. So that was hard. And I worship by myself a lot. She is not a churchgoer, but as the male in our relationship, I am the spiritual head of our family. So what I do, and she's good with this. This is the thing, is she is good with this. I pretty much have become her teacher. We read the Bible together. We watch sermons on TV together, but it's just not her thing to go to a church. And that's okay as long as she's getting fed. So it's okay, but you have to, I wish we were worshiping together? Absolutely. Because that's a bonding experience for me, to have her with me and to worship together. And that's bonding on just a different level, a spiritual level. And we do that, but we had to figure that out. But I would kind of start asking these questions and figuring it out, because it can cause a lot of trouble. It did for a lot of years. I was resentful that she wasn't coming to church with me, and then I would just kind of come home and sulk about it, and I would kind of make her feel pressured to go, and then she would go, but she wasn't getting anything out of it because she didn't want to go, and I was just kind of making her feel guilty for not going. And it took a long time to really figure that out and discuss that out. And that was a wrong on my part. It just took a while for me to figure out what a man was supposed to do in that situation. Another thing that we need to talk about is kids. Now, I've said on many occasions, my wife and I don't have kids, but what we do have is pets. And believe it or not, our styles are different. And I have a lot of friends who have kids. I have children that I teach. And one of the things that I find that is a major obstacle is raising kids. Men have a way of more of making them a grown-up style kind of method, and making them responsibility. That's what we're taught. I don't know if it's necessarily genetically ingrained, but men are at their core want to make sure that their family survives. Their kids have the tools that they need to survive. And women tend to be more on the nurturing side of things. So they want to make sure their physical needs are met. You know, they're healthy, they're fed, they're getting what they need to feel grounded and healthy in their own skin. Now, this varies, but that's kind of the breakdown of what at the core we start out with. Now, are there variations? Absolutely, because people have different ways they've been raised, and that affects their ability. But at the core, women usually tend to be a little more maternal, and men tend to be a little bit more external. So get that straight. I've seen so many divorces happen over this, and it's for varying reasons. I've seen women who are less maternal and the men are more maternal, and there's nothing wrong with that at all. Nothing wrong with that at all. So, but it does cause problems whenever you can't get the roles down and you can't figure out what's what. And you also take the judgment out of it, the jealousy out of it, because kids are a source of jealousy. The parents get jealous over the kids' affections. I've seen that a lot in my life. It's caused family turmoil in my life. But on the scale of it, let's get that down and figure out the way that you're going to raise the kids and also compromise. I've seen so many, a friend of mine, his wife has a degree in child psychology, but she's completely oblivious to his way of raising things. So she's book smart and he's street smart, and they clash. And unfortunately, it's come to a head for them. And they both have value, but they dismiss the other person's value. Don't do that. Find the values and find the things that you can agree on, and then discuss the things that you don't, and play the pros and cons and figure out a way. But kids are a big, big stumbling block. Also, you got to put each other first. You don't put the kids first. You actually put each other first, then the kids, because you have to be a united front. You can disagree with me all day long, but the proof is in the pudding. Whenever you don't have a united front on the male and female together, whenever you're raising your kids, if you don't have a united front, you are doomed to fail. And that's because the kids will figure this out and they'll start playing the mom and dad against each other. 100% of the time, 100% issue in the marriage that causes division between the spouses. You've got to nip that and become a united front. And don't fight in front of the kids because they get to see the cracks. There's actually a strategic piece to this. If you fight in front of the kids see the cracks and they exploit that to get what they want. See, kids are just kids. They're like little inmates trying to figure out how to bend some rules and break others. So you have to take that out of the equations because it absolutely will happen. Become a united front, figure out how to raise the kids, discuss it, have it in place, and then stick to it the best that you can. And be open to the other person's opinion. And this is going to segue into our final piece, number 5, partnership. Learning what it is to be a partner with your spouse differs and varies from each couple, and you have to have open communications. I have seen men, and we're just going to start out with breadwinner philosophy. I have seen men who are the breadwinners, and the women stay at home, and they take care of the kids. There is nothing wrong with that. There is nothing more honorable than that for a woman to take care of the kids. Now, the flip side is also true. I have seen men take the role of keeping the house and taking care of the kids, and the woman becoming the breadwinner. And there is nothing wrong with that. You have to get in and see who's going to have the better chance of bringing finances into the house so that you can maximize that. And sometimes women have the upper hand, and sometimes the man has the upper hand. It just depends. But there's nothing wrong. And if you both have to work, then you both have to work. We started out in society where we could be a one-income home and survive. We're not really there unless you're in the upper echelons of pay. And even still, it's still tight. And a lot of times, it's easier for one spouse to stay home because daycare bills are too expensive. And basically, you have one spouse that's just working to pay the daycare bill. And that's not ethical. So it makes sense to save money. It makes sense to figure that out if you're in that situation. If the daycare bill is just another bill and the other person's check is not fully going to it, or just to pay it or put most of it, just weigh that. That's a money thing. Where is it a bill that you really need, or are you better off without it? And that is entirely up to you, but this is something to think about. But my main thing here is there's nothing wrong with a stay-at-home husband, and there's nothing wrong with a stay-at-home wife. There's nothing wrong with that. If that's what works, that's what works. In partnership, you also have to realize that don't hold grudges when people are not able to do, or whenever your partner is not able to do what you think they should be doing. Learn to talk about it before you get mad. And also, if at all possible, try to not go to bed mad. Try to discuss things at a reasonable time. If you both are still hot about something, stay away from it, come back to it. But don't leave it out there lingering. When you can talk about a discussion that is getting heated and get through it, that's the better option. And also, you got to realize that marriages are going to have trouble. Don't come into it with the expectation it's going to be perfect, because it won't. Marriages are hard and they're not perfect. But the reason why a long marriage is strong is because of the imperfections. If you fight and you come out on the other side with better understanding of each other because you had to have a difficult conversation, your relationship will be stronger. I have often said this, but real marriages are made in fire. They're not made in water. Fire, they need to be heated up and tempered, just like steel, and that's what makes them stronger. If it's good all the time, the first time that you come across something that is detrimental, your marriage is going to fold. So work through the problems best you can. And this is also, I want to put a disclaimer here. If you're getting abused by your spouse, then get out. Get away. That is something that we have to realize is not acceptable, and Jesus would not want that. I can say that Jesus would not want us to be abused in our marriage. If your husband is unfaithful or your wife is unfaithful, get out. That is a reason for divorce. That is biblically a reason, but it is also more than anything immoral, because once a person cheats, they're probably going to cheat again. Don't do it for the kids, because they will figure it out. They're not stupid. They'll figure it out. So infidelity and abuse are just, they're non-go for me. I don't believe it. I started out with this. I told my wife in the very beginning that I don't share. If she ever cheats on me, the marriage is over, period. If I ever cheat on her, I will end the marriage, because that's what's fair. I don't risk bringing home a disease to her. I don't risk bringing unwanted pregnancies into our relationship, adding to how tough it is already. I don't risk any of those things. So, get these things together right out the chute. And lastly, I will stand by this, but put God at the center of your marriage. God first, okay? Then you, your spouse, and then your kids. Treat each other as if you are pieces of gold and diamonds that you would never find anywhere. I'm telling you, folks, that's the real key to a relationship, is treating each other with that kind of respect. I have a friend, her husband does things that she doesn't like. And it's not malicious or anything like that, but she's had some bad experiences, and she has said straightly that I do not like that stuff being done to me. And he can't help it. He'll just do it. He'll do it without thinking about it. And it puts a wedge, because for her, it is a trauma that she needs to not have to be reminded of. So respect your spouse. When they say, I have a limit, do not cross it. And if it's something that's could be questionable limit, like it's going to affect you both in a negative way, then there bears to be discussion. Maybe counseling needs to be come involved. Those things. And I'll tell you, my wife and I, just over the last 27 years, my wife has anorexia, and we live with it. Anorexia, real anorexics, lifetimers, it just doesn't go away. So we live with it. I had a friend one time say, well, when she gets thin, why don't you just sneak some fat into her food so that she'll gain weight? And you can't do that. That's not helpful. That's a violation. That's a violation of their trust. So you can't do something underhanded, even if it is for the best of purposes in your mind. You can't do that. You have to love them the way they are. And hopefully you both sand off the edges on your souls, that you sand it off and you round each other and make each other smooth, and you mold with each other. We live with anorexia. What we did is we found coping tactics, like, for instance, we set for her a weight, and she has to maintain that weight. If not, we have to change the diet up. But it's all with her knowledge. This weight is something that we agreed upon together. And that's how we navigate it. That's how we get through it. And that's the way we do health. She has other benefits, because, believe it or not, it's not all a bad thing. Her anorexia makes her more conscious of health and eating practices, which has been great for me. That's how I've actually been able to have a better weight, is because she's very, very smart about eating, because she's anorexic. It's something that she's good at. So she does help with our diet, and we have educated each other. So be a partner. You discuss things, not things that you view as something that's really, really bad and negative. As long as it's, not malicious, there are illnesses that create positive side effects because of the knowledge that is gained through having them, such as the anorexia. She's better at nutrition than I am. And so I've become more healthier because of her. So take those things into consideration and don't look at your partner as damaged. Look at them as different. This is a true fact about partnership. Men think about things one thing at a time because they only use one half of their brain at a time. Women use both of their sides of their brain all the time. They're shooting simultaneously. So their brain, both sides are firing at the same time. That is why a lot of times women will notice something 20 miles up the road and tell you, wait! And you're like, what? Because you haven't noticed it yet, but they're telling you, hey, there's going to be a car on the side of the road 20 miles up the road according to Waze or to MapQuest. Well, a man's going, well, I don't even know about it now. This a little early, don't you think? You scared me. Women are just like that. That's why they get startled more. Bottom line is, it's not a bad thing because they're looking out for you in the future. And men keep women in the present. This can vary in relationships, but it's a pretty good rule of thumb. So anyway, I hope these are things that I wished I'd known before I got married. And I hope that they help you with your marriage. I hope you all have a great week.